Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to the 14th edition of DSCI Best Practice Meet. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the attendees in this session on SCADA security stack, market solutions, and ground realities. So now I would like to invite our panelists for this session. First, I would like to invite Mr. Pritam Saha, practice lead OT security, Inspira Enterprise Limited. So can we have Mr. Pritam on stage? Hello,
Yeah, hello. Good
hi, Mr.
afternoon. Thanks a lot
Good
for inviting me.
afternoon. Yeah. So Mr. Pritam will moderate this session as well. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Murali Krishna Voleti. He is ICT and Cyber Operational Leader in Honeywell Automation Limited.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for the invite.
Hi, Mr. Murali. Hi. Good afternoon. Now, I would like to call Mr. Jayant Gupta. He is Executive Director, Information Security at HPCL.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Thanks
Mr.
for
Jayant.
having me here.
Yeah. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Evgeny. He is head of Kaspersky Lab, ICS CERT at Kaspersky. May we have Mr. Evgeny? Yeah. Hello, Mr. Evgeny. Good afternoon. Mr. Evgeny, you are on mute. You may unmute yourself. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Rohit Sharma, head of cyber security and CISO at Adani Power and Adani Group. Hello, Mr. Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for
Thank
having me
you.
here.
Yeah, thank you to all the panelists for joining us in this session in this critical subject. So now I would like to hand over to Mr. Pritam to moderate this session. Over to you, Mr. Pritam.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Harshita, and welcome everyone, all the audience, everybody around here. So just to give you, quick background about the SCADA security stack that we are talking about today. So in general, in OT networks, which generally controls your critical equipments, whether it is in utilities, oil and gas, energy, manufacturing, assembly lines, so traditionally these networks have been very isolated from outside world. Now as we see more industry 4.0 or ITOT convergence is happening, mainly because the AI ML part, that is coming very strong from IT side, that helps especially in business analytics, or doing a lot of deterministic maintenance on existing systems, or even efficiency improvements. So because of that, we are seeing more and more convergences happening, and that obviously increases threats to existing infrastructure that we have, mainly because because of the how the network segmentations are, or how the solutions are already implemented, patch management or even legacy systems. So we'll be talking about that, and thanks to all the experts that we have on our panel. So now, very first thing, the existing SCADA landscape or the OT landscape that we have, the maturity levels, or overall, the common practices that we use. So yeah, I would like to bring in, Mr. Voleti to kind of give us, overview about existing infrastructure, when we see about OT and IoT.
Hi, hope everybody able to hear me that's
Yes, we
clearly.
can.
Yeah, majorly at the OT environment, it is most people knows about IT environment. Majorly, it has computing system. On top of it, we have some more things is comes under OT. In from 1970, coming to the factor of cybersecurity, from 1970, they identified some of the digital systems which are placed outside of the IT network. It has comes under OT. Majorly, people think about what is the difference in trying to understand the difference of OTs. There we call as normally operation technology, which interacts with physical equipment with humans majorly. Okay, and especially this OT, so we call as ICS, SCADA in terms of not non-IT digital system. These are comes under non-IT digital. It is mainly comprised of likely power grid all, or what has Pritam Shah said. Nowadays, it is moving to the vehicle side also. This OT environment is coming into OT controls, or so many things are coming up, and this is having inbuilt of cyber and physical and digital, and so many equipments are added into it. Okay, This majorly compromise of manufacturing, gas, even you can see in HVAC control systems in your buildings and smart cities. Maybe you're seeing about most of the, as per the government initiative, more than 100 smart cities to become up. It is also as a part of OT is part of that. Okay, and coming to that, majorly the challenge coming to the with respect to this, coming to the OT environment connected to the connected environment comes up. Majorly, these protocols are non-standard protocols. Normally, in IT sector, maybe you heard about it. Maybe use HTTP or HTTP, HTTPS, or UTP or something like that. But coming to the OT systems, you have something like a proprietary protocols, open protocols, some legacy protocols, which you can't see in the IT environment. Okay, coming to the other angle of that, it is have some difference of the emphasis of the threat. Logically, if you see OT emphasis and IT, just I'm making a difference to understand. Then we will go to the how what is OT landscape. IT threat emphasis majorly information, data alteration, data volatility. Majorly it talks about CAA. But coming to the OT threat emphasis, it's environment disaster, physical process downtime, and information disclosure. It is actually giving a problem to that. And coming to that, majorly the difference is for the difference between the OT experts and the experts. Majorly, OT security professional thinks about they want a critical objects to involve assurance of safe, sound operations, and OT infrastructure manner to avoid human casualties and loss of production for large thing, costly physical assets, especially we have a physical assets. This OT landscaping also having lot of equipment which are in very legacy. Where in IT infrastructure, just I'm giving a comparison for easy access for everybody. In IT environment, every 4 years or 5 years that evolvement is coming up. Equipments keep changing it, and I know we are adding a new equipment. But coming to the OT environment, the equipment change also a longer period. Sometimes it's more than 10 years with a OT environment. Okay, coming to the majorly the systems which incorporates OT is majorly gives a comfort to the human or providing a service to the humans or giving a connectivity to the some of the things. This majorly this OT environment is when it come to cyber environment majorly when it is moving from traditional mechanical systems to some more digitalization start cyber attack starts, especially we have a lot of attack vectors are started because of connected environment comes in a picture. Especially can maybe some of my panelists maybe talk about some of the threat vectors like USB threat vector, remote connectivities, or something like asset availability missing something infrastructure. Nowadays, in a OT environment, majorly following some standards are asset monitoring, which they are doing it, activity monitoring, which presently doing, and they're doing a domain separation. They're making a separate domain for the compared IT infrastructure. They're making a separate network, and OT infrastructure is separated network because IT keeps updates, environment changes, and accomplishes it. But we're in OT, we have a lot of challenge to come up. Okay, coming to the strong entity of authentication, like a physical controls, logical controls, they're keeping it to make it very stronger nowadays. Okay, coming to that, major challenges maybe you can see here. Somebody saying in a OT structure, they implemented it as sorry, approved enterprise reference architecture. They used it in a OT infrastructure. They have 5 levels. It's have 5 levels. It is 0 to 1, 2 is a physical layers, and third is a logical layer. Fifth, fourth, and fifth is enterprise layer. 0, 1, 2 is majorly instrumentation, control, area supervision, everything comes in. Second level is coming operations, especially which is a logical layer, which have logical controlling mechanism. Fourth and fifth is business planning and logistics, enterprise network. So they're able to monitor everything and able to control everything from top level. If something goes wrong, we can able to control from bottom level to top or top level. So they have very good emphasis. Coming to the strong evidences to be followed in the thing, SOPs, which is majorly we see people are following standard operation structures in the environment. And coming to the next one is change management, they are following it. And they're keeping a share and learnings, majorly that whatever the incident happened to the across premises, keep that OT industry keeps updating it their systems, make it robust. Otherwise, what happens if they're not following the same guidelines which they have for have hampering somebody else? So they cannot able to sustain. So that's the reason why even OT started evolving to that, because of now IoT technologies coming in picture, which is gives them more robust connectivity to the equipment, especially the latest equipment. Since so many things now, 5G is planned now, IoT also going to be connected to that, and the infrastructure will be more and more connectivity. So when there's more and more connectivity, also there's a lot of cyber attack chances are very high. So that's what is the systems are working now. The segregation is very vital place taken up, and standard operations also taken very place. Asset monitoring is very important place going on. This takes very next level to the OT environment compared to last 2 decades, when we see latest technologies is giving up the upsell, up movement on the generations of the OT security especially.
Right. So you rightly mentioned, right, about the challenges that we have right now in the current environment and the hardening, that needs to be done. So Mr. Rohit, I'll come to you on the challenges, whether it's visibility or in general asset management, legacy systems, what kind of vector do you see, in general in the industry right now?
Yeah, thanks, Pritam. So, as Murali has rightly brought out, the fundamental of an OT or security operations are quite different from how we handle cyber security in IT landscape. For example, in the IT systems, it is very easy to get a patch downloaded from the OEM website and apply it on the solution. And technical vulnerability management is very, say, smooth to operate. But in the OT system, the problems are entirely different. So, for example, one of the major problems that we see is of end of life system. So, life cycle of OT system is several times more than a IT system. Systems like SCADA and DCS have life cycle of 15 to 20 years, and the fundamental building blocks of these systems become obsolete in the IT world multiple times in this life cycle. So there are still SCADA and DCS systems which are running on end of life operating systems like Windows XP or Windows 8. So one of the major problems that we see in the industry is end of life system, and it is very challenging and intensive to replace these systems. Then the other major problem in OT landscape is of asset visibility. So since the IT industry has a built-in security mechanism in all of their systems, there are monitoring methods which are built into most of the IT solutions, like SNMP or ICMP protocols can be used to monitor IT systems. There is no fundamental inbuilt monitoring or visibility mechanism built into the OT system. So it becomes very difficult to get a bird's eye view of the entire landscape. Then, since you are not aware of the entire landscape, envisaging or visualizing the attack surface becomes a major challenge. So, if you are not aware of the landscape, how are you going to protect it? The second challenge remains asset visibility. Then most of the systems right now are moving to digital transformation, and since digital transformation requires data as one of the building blocks, there are IT to OT interconnections happening all across the industries, be it power sector or a transport sector or aviation sector. You will see that organizations need data from OT systems for analytics and further processing. So you need to have a IT to OT interface, and once this interface is established, then it opens a pipeline of threats to flow into the OT systems. So securing IT OT interface is one of the major problem statements in the field of OT cybersecurity. Once this channel is established, now you have a problem of patching and updating the system. And how to patch a system which is already a legacy system or which is not directly connected to internet? Because if you connect a OT system to internet, then it is a major risk that you have introduced into the system. So getting patching files or update files from OEMs infrastructure into a OT landscape becomes a major problem. And further, say if I am using an antivirus in a OT system, uh, direct update of an antivirus signature can result into the disruption in the process. So all the antivirus signatures or say operating system updates need to be vetted by the OT systems manufacturer. So there is a cumbersome process in which you need to validate each and every signatures of antivirus and say operating system and then migrate it to OT system. So validation of signatures and secure file transfer is another problem statement in the OT system security. Then supply chain security is one of the major concerns. We have seen multiple incidents which have resulted due to supply chain security. The components which are used to build a OT system, how secure are they, and is there any backdoor embedded into the systems which can be used to manipulate the control systems at a later date? So that is one of the major problems in ensuring the cyber security. And in fact, the regulators have also started realizing this problem, and therefore we are seeing increased number of guidelines coming in, specifically in power sector related to supply chain security and testing requirements for components which are being used to build OT systems in power sector, for example, in the grid or in the generating stations. Recently, we have already witnessed what has happened in Ukraine, and before that, we have seen the impact of attack on colonial pipelines. So the impact that is going to happen due to a cyber attack on a OT system is going to be far more disruptive and affecting general population than if you compare a similar attack on a IT system. So the gravity here is entirely uh, magnitudes of difference than a than an IT system. So these are the major problem statements in my understanding. End of life systems, secured remote access, patching and update, secure file transfer, IT OT convergence. These are the major issues in ensuring the cybersecurity of an OT system.
Yeah, so rightly mentioned, right? One is the the threat coming from IT connectivity is one thing, and as we know, from Stuxnet back in 2010, even if your systems are completely isolated, the threat actors actually can penetrate even through USB. In OT systems, typically these things are not well protected or hardened. The passwords are typically very easy to. Many times you'll see in control rooms, the passwords are actually stuck on a dashboard so that anybody can have access. Of course it's in control environment, but do vendors do have access to these control rooms when they come for any kind of upgrades. So talking about the vulnerability itself, right? So I want to come to you, mainly about the threat vectors that we have right now in OT, and of course because of OT-IT convergence, vulnerability assessment as well as the management part. How do you see the industry shifting from where we are to where we need to be? I think you're on mute, Evgeny. Evgeny, uh, your microphone is on mute. If you won't mind unmuting.
Sorry. There are quite many challenges that my colleagues have already mentioned. Among all of them, I would say that probably the most important currently for the OT environments would be to somehow solve the problem of vulnerability management. The problem is quite complicated. We're talking currently to quite many customers and potential customers from different infrastructures. And what we see is that none of them, none of the infrastructure, none of the industrial enterprises has come currently to a suitable solution. So what is the actual need? You can't do just you can just follow the patch it all strategy for the OT environments, which is pretty obvious because of the many reasons that colleagues already mentioned. So you need to understand what exactly needs to be patched. So you need to understand what is the priority of the vulnerability, and you need to understand which of your assets are actually vulnerable. And you need to be to keep track of the vulnerability of your environment, so that the vulnerability assessment needs to be continuous, and you can't do it in any way rather than do it in a passive way. So you need to understand what your assets are, what the exact versions of the firmwares and software is, and what the configuration is, and so on and so forth, and then to match all this information to a very exact and detailed information on the vulnerabilities. The first problem, the building of a very detailed and very accurate asset inventory, is currently being solved. It is really, really hard task, but there are ways to partially solve it for at least part of the infrastructure. But for the second problem, it is a more systematical and more wide scale, because of the fact that the current quality of the information on the vulnerabilities available in the public and released by the vendors is not the quality is not enough to fulfill the needs of the continuous passive vulnerability assessment and vulnerability management. And this is because of many reasons, and the major reason is the effort and the probably the culture that vendors have currently for the process, especially when it comes to dealing with smaller vendors, not the global ones. You would always face the problem that they would treat the information on the vulnerabilities in their product as something offensive for them, as something that might harm their business, their reputation, and so on and so forth. So even when releasing information, they tend to underestimate the risk, and they tend to not say you what could happen. The problem that is, I think, very related and very actual for the majority of the vendors would be the time a vendor needs to release a patch, and that's because of the all these compatibility issues with the legacy systems, and to introduce support for all of them with the use of the protocols that architecture has been designed a while ago, and sometimes even because of the lack of proper cybersecurity expertise. We saw cases when a major vendor spent more than 5 years to fix an architectural and built-in problem in their authentication mechanism. So they were fixing it, we were reporting more issues, they were fixing it again, and we were reporting issues again. And it took 5 years to make it almost that good as it is currently standard for IT systems. And during some of the iterations, it may take 1 year or 1 year and a half, and even longer for a vendor to release a patch. Also because of the very, very understandable reasons. But during all these years, sometimes the vulnerable infrastructure owners are not aware of the fact that there is some vulnerability and they need to do something. So to establish a efficient vulnerability coordinated disclosure process for OT infrastructures, for OT environment is a very important thing that I think we all need to do and to work on. And even when releasing the patch and when releasing information on the vulnerabilities, sometimes vendors might not only follow the cybersecurity or treat cybersecurity as their first priority and try to meet the cybersecurity needs of their customers, because they have quite many other things on their agenda, like releasing new product and decreasing the complexity and the cost of support of old versions, and so on and so forth. So in many cases, the vulnerability coming from the vendor side, and which is normally the only thing which is available for the OT operators and for the OT owners, would be not very precise. Sometimes they would even say that the vulnerability is more critical than it actually is, because they're fixing kind of small bug, a small bug or small hole in the system, and there is a huge gate someplace around. So lots of analysis needs to be done to understand what the actual impact is and what the actual reason of the vulnerability is, and it is really important for the operators and the owners of the systems to understand how to mitigate the risk without installing a patch. Because sometimes the patch is not available.
So you rightly mentioned, right, for most of the OT part. So of course, there is some lack of awareness that is there. When I say awareness, because traditional operating staff, on a plant, who have been working there for 20, 25, 30 years, they do lack some understanding of the security aspect of their operation. They're masters of, operating the plant itself, but the threats that may come in, externally, it could be because of someone connects one cable, from corporate switch to OT network to get access to internet from a SCADA machine, which happens, on several occasions. But the active versus passive, monitoring, for your asset discovery as well as your real-time vulnerability, assessment. So Mr. Jayant, coming to you, how do you see the trends right now, when it comes to the solutions that we have and where they need to be, from the aspect. One is from company perspective, from operations perspective, the education or more, understanding of these products and the threats. And second is from the OEM side, what kind of infrastructure, that they need to understand to actually make these, deployments very successful.
Sorry, is that question to me?
I'm sorry. Okay.
Please go ahead.
So thanks, Pritam. So Murali has already talked about the differentiation between OT and IT network. So to my mind, first thing we should try to do is to build strengths which are acquired in information security network. See, we all are well versed with information system security, the typical IT security that we call about, and very well stabilized right now. You have IT SOCs, you have IT tools, which takes care of various threats which are emanating. So one of the aspect which we keep at the back of the mind in IT security is connect only what is required. So data movement from one place to another passes through a kind of filter which understands the threats which are coming in from the other sides and is able to take corrective action. Now, the only problem that we have in OT network, OT security is that we don't understand the protocols which are used, which was rightly brought about by Mr. Murali on the proprietary protocols being used in the typical OT security, OT networks. So what we can do is we could probably use some open protocols as much as possible, although the OEMs would want to still use their own proprietary protocols. It provides some inherent advantages, no doubt about that. But as we move to the open protocols, it becomes easier for security tools, which are upcoming in the OT security also, to understand those threat information and then take corrective action. Very few would be able to read the proprietary protocols. Some of it might not even be allowed, so you'll have to be cautious about that. But if it uh, can definitely be used. Other thing that we can do, apart from various areas that have already been covered up by my fellow panel members, is looking at traffic which is going in from the internet side or external to OT network, be it corporate network or internet network, into the OT network. Now, if you can have a diode or a firewall, typically we all use in our IT security also, to be configured in such a way that it allows the packets from one side to another, only those type of packets which are required. So you might not want a connection from internet into your OT network to be originated. You know, you wouldn't want a connection to be originated from internet side into your OT side. So if it is getting originated, except when you've given remote uh, support for remote support if you've taken, but that again could be done in multiple ways. Uh, you would not want to allow that directly. So open connection from outside to in is not allowed. You only want information to be picked up from OT side and used in your corporate network for data juggling, AI purpose, and various models that would run to make some meaning of that further information, which is not for control purpose. Uh, Other thing that we can do is probably run a passive IDS. Uh, some of the sniffers are available which can sniff the data and not do anything in the OT network. You simply read it, pull it into another place, and then see if you can make some sense out of uh, uh, those threads which are there on that network. If possible, IEC 62443 standard is available for you to implement. Slightly tedious, not much of practices are available, but you can take them if you want to go to that kind of a mechanism. Very important is to develop an knowledge about the OT devices, about the controller, and so on, so that you have much a clarity about the threat which is emerging. As you have knowledge about your HTTP and HTTPS, uh, high time that those companies which use OT network heavily, and almost everybody is moving to that side with IoT becoming more prevalent, it is important that some practice is started towards the understanding of those operational technologies. And last, I think OT SOC is the theme of the day. You should look at and one of the, I think, uh, question that came in the chat also was about the what to consider in OT SOC. So my suggestion would be uh, uh, to look at threats which are there. So some kind of your device which could pull in the traffic from there, a passive passive reader, and then see the threads which are readable by your tools, and again making sense of these kind of traffics which are not supposed to be originated from there or supposed to be there on the network. I think that could be one way forward.
Yeah, so you rightly mentioned, right? One is the passive IDS solutions typically that gets deployed in these OT environments. But there are certain challenges, like there are a lot of unmanaged switches, so it's more of a broadcast domain compared to having the clear packets to understand all the assets. So unless you have that asset identification done, you cannot really do a whole lot of vulnerability assessment. And so there is some need to improve the existing infrastructure, obviously. And on the SOC side, SOC is typically, they're monitoring, they're doing the remediation part, or, but the actual detection part is again done by these systems. So the hardening of these systems and required infrastructure upgrade, from the end user point of side is also, I think, equally important. So it's more of a hybrid kind of situation, to improve the security postures than only from OEM side or obviously from company side. So just to see, if anybody, if we have any questions, specific on this topic, or any specific, any specific topic or subtopic, that somebody wants to hear more about, we'll be more than happy to. Or else, I'll like to have all the panelists to share their quick 1 minute conclusion about this session or in general OT security.
Okay, there is a question on the how to address OT endpoint security. Considering the resume of considering every OT environment as a heterogeneous. But actually, if you see any OT system, but platform, OS platform is like a maximum of five flavors, not more than that. If you take it the flavoring also, base platform is Windows and Linux, majorly it is kind of. So if you nowadays new technologies, I'll give some more time. I will take it out. Nowadays, new next gen antiviruses are coming, which is actually have a provision to identify zero-day attacks. Even that's what is the beauty of it. We've seen multiple products which are having able to identify, stop, detect, and identify, highlight, and inform them. Boss, this is what is happening. That's what one of the system I've seen it. Multiple manufacturers having this product. It will help them. It supports multiple flavors. It's not like, and they can able to see in a dashboard way how many files. It's file scans or raw files also. On top of it, some more points. Nowadays, I also see in OT environment, since they are not connected, they're using a USB drives to share the data between. They're taking a data from the one mission to other mission. Majorly, we found that there is a high chance that somebody taking a USB would have vulnerability and they're putting into the SCADA system or in the system and start functioning it. It's one we found one of the product we found at recently that this identify that time there is a check-in check-out process. It identify USB with a numbering assetting number. You can have a password protection for the USB. So if somebody coming with that without giving the pen drive a check-in, then if you want to use it in the asset, they can't. That's what is one of the thing I want to give it like people can understand.
Right, right. And
Third,
yeah,
yeah,
please go
sorry.
ahead. Please
A
go.
third one is coming to the asset, rightly said by Jayant and Rohit. Nowadays, this majorly that asset inventory is actually making a very biggest problem because of these so many things. Even not only asset environment, that in the asset, we maybe need to identify which are the have vulnerabilities because of these products are OEM based product. Majorly problem is that identifying vulnerability or the latest firmware availability or latest patch availability is the biggest concern until somebody goes check in whether this have a later firmware or not. There's a lot of products coming in the picture. What it says is it scans the system continuously and says that and makes a dynamic networking protocols, dynamic network mapping, and saying this protocol is communicating to this, but this is something like this old firmware, this is a new firmware, something available in the thing. They have a thing. That's what it is. Actually, there is a lot of products are coming up. This can help to identify and protect the system. On top of it, recently we said honeypots. Maybe people heard about it. Honeypot systems also came into the OT systems. What it does exactly do is they create a replica of your system, same as is. It will be available in your. It seems to be your network, but normally what happens? It identifies this threat vector and gives you that it is actually the success rate is 99%, 99 point.
Right. So
I see 99 point.
th- I think there's some communication issue, Mr. Voleti. So
Something
just
they give the hotspot.
just going to real quick to one
Yeah,
of the
it's done
question
for.
about the OT security, the assessment methodology. So one of the bigger, I think, is as it was mentioned about IC 62443 is typically considered as one of the gold standard. But again, there are several different assessment methodologies or compliances that are required. Let's say in power sector there is a CEA has specific guidelines in India, or even CII, or NCIPC, does give, certain guidelines. So it really depends on the industry. But the 62443 is, consolidated one single framework that you can use regardless of what industry you are into to harden your systems to understand, what your postures are or where you are at, doing that assessment.
So Pritam, just one more point. There are some OEMs who also provide the security services. If for some people both provider and checker conflict is not a concern, then they can look at the OEMs themselves providing those security services and trying to enhance the security posture. But keep in mind that there is a conflict of doer and checker. Just you'll have to be aware of that.
You're very right. So thanks a lot for that, Mr. Jayant. And I'll just go through and just quick conclusion remarks from all panelists. Starting from Mr. Voleti, please.
Sorry, you're saying something?
A conclusion. If you have any concluding remark, for the session as well as in general OT security side.
Majorly, I say one point I say let's follow standard operation procedures, and you should have a right standard method for change management, and you should have minimum what you can say entity authentication. You should have it. These three is a major core. If you follow any OT system, it definitely sustain for the longevity and stops from the longer threats also, big threats.
Okay, Mr. Rohit.
Uh, yeah, Pritam. So, summarily, what we have been doing, I will be trying to explain that. So, the first major step that anyone could take in securing the OT system is to make a inventory which is exhaustive of each and every component, so that in case there is a major vulnerability which is discovered, you are able to identify what is the impact on your landscape. The second is to have a visibility. So there are multiple OEMs which have solutions which can provide real-time visibility into the OT systems. Other would be next step will be to have a secured remote access, so that in case a OEM requires monitoring or troubleshooting access to your system, you are able to provision that access without introducing any risk in your system. And then again, following most of the uh, ISO 27001 requirements in OT system will be sufficing, because the CSMS in the IEC 62443 also is aligned to what is the requirements of ISO 27001. So yeah, that is one of the most exhaustive frameworks that we can use. And finally, using the Purdue model in network segmentation, segmenting the network into multiple zones and introducing firewalls at the interzone communication. That will be a very good initiative to protect the OT system. So that is my 2 cents on securing the OT systems.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Evgeny, your concluding words, please.
We've been mentioning various problems and our thoughts and challenges and thoughts how those challenges and problems might be addressed. And I was listening to all of the colleagues and thinking that that's potentially very interesting times when we do not have a historically accepted and adopted cybersecurity approaches and solutions suitable for OT, and we are currently in the process of building the ones that would be the standard for the future OT environments. So currently, what we do is we are trying to say, oh, okay, we have this problem in OT security, and there seemed to be an IT security solution that was addressing similar problems someplace in IT. Let's try and adopt it. Let's try and test it for the compatibility. Let's try and use it the way it was done for IT, but with some slight modifications for OT environments. What I see is that the whole OT um, the whole OT ecosystems, and including the OT security, is trying to move in a kind of the less vendors you have in place, the more reliable system is scenarios. So, and many OT vendors are trying to incorporate some security controls and security environments into their products. So currently, I think that probably the most interesting tendency that all the security vendors, cybersecurity vendors, might also need also to jump in and like, to follow is the product security. So if to say a vendor has a like SCADA or DCS or whatever other kind of products, it needs to have all cybersecurity controls and features built in, and like being a natural part of the product. So the product needs to be designed with the cybersecurity in mind. It needs to be it needs to have cybersecurity architecture and cybersecurity implementation, and all the cybersecurity additional features not on top of it but built in. And what I see currently is that none of the vendors themselves and none of the cybersecurity vendors themselves cannot solve this problem. So that should be cooperation between uh, these ones and that ones. And this is the only way to build infrastructures cyber secure and reliable enough to meet all the needs
Right.
of that.
So security by design or security in a box, to begin with,
Yeah.
that will give more control around what we have. And uh, lastly, Mr. Jayant, for your golden words.
Uh, I would say two aspects. One, keep the whole thing simple and allow what is really required to be allowed. Just keep that principle in mind, and whatever you do next should fall in line. And second is to move towards more of open technology and standards to keep your costs low and also create more of security. So these two aspects are, I think, more important.
Thanks a lot again. Thanks to all the prolific panelists here, and of course, DSCI. So over to you, Harshita.